Okay, welcome back to another fun-filled episode of 20 Minutes of Winning.
20 minutes of winning.
Here with my dear friend Larry Thornton. You having a good afternoon so far, Larry?
I'm having a great afternoon. It's good to be back with you. Looking forward to this discussion, and hopefully our listeners will be able to get some modicum of information that can help them get closer to a winning experience. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be quite a bit of value added for folks. Today we're talking about chapter 3 of your book, Why Not Win, which is titled If You Can't Take Anything, ... And the general topic we want to cover today is perseverance, winning through perseverance.
Yeah.
How perseverance can be essential through getting through tough times and coming out the other side a stronger person.
Yeah.
So in chapter 3, you talk about the abuse that you took as a 9th grader in 1967. Just for a little context, that's the year after I was born. I don't want to make you feel old, but
well, I do, but that's all right.
Well, you look good. In describing that experience, here's what you said. I just want to read a brief passage. Every day from the moment we got off the bus, this is back when kids actually used the school bus, right?
Yeah.
From the moment we got off the bus in the morning until we were back on in the afternoon, we were often belittled, dismissed, humiliated, and sometimes pinched, pushed, and shoved.
No.
To say those were challenging times would be the epitome of an understatement. What's going through your head as you are belittled, dismissed, humiliated, and how did you persevere through all that?
Yeah, well, tell you bring back some interesting but unfortunate memories, Dave. It was a difficult time for everybody. I mean, we had never been around whites in that capacity, and whites had not been around blacks in that capacity. And there were a number of social norms. I call it social constructs that sent unwritten messages as to how those two communities ought to behave. And let's go ahead and use as a backdrop, I'm only 12 years old in the 9th grade, and just reaching puberty, figuring out who I am, noticing girls noticing, and now you've got these tremendous messages of inferiority coming at you on a daily basis. And it was just a difficult time and tough for me to calibrate as I go back, even with this chapter, which is one of my favorites. It was difficult writing that because you can't write it without reliving it. And so I was right back there, but it was tough to say the least. There were only 6 of us, Dave, in the entire school. So we could very easily go through the entire day without seeing each other. So it was a very lonely walk, and to be rejected in that way with those unspoken messages was difficult to say the least.
Based on my reading of the chapter, it sounds like things hit rock bottom maybe April 5th, 1968, the morning after Dr. King was assassinated. What was that morning like?
Yeah, well, the biggest challenge for me was experiencing how my mom and my dad felt. My mom was a very firm, strong individual, just a rock in our family. Dad was visibly shaken, my mom crying, and the community was sad. And of course, even though I couldn't fully appreciate the significance of Dr. King at that age, but I knew something terrible had happened. And to contrast that, Dave, with the next morning, exiting the school bus, and as I say in that same chapter, it would mirror something of a funeral procession. All of the kids were as if they were bloodthirsty, dead silence, waiting for us to exit the bus to get our reaction, and to see that burst of jubilance and this celebratory atmosphere was just something difficult to calibrate from last night to deny it over the same incident. And even as a young person, at this time, I'm 13 years old, I could never figure out why they disliked me so much. And I hadn't done anything that I could point to. And even as a young person, Dave, I could even then, when the reasons would circle back to skin pigment and hair texture, it was even then too trivial to be the reason, and I would dismiss it every time. But eventually, I had to acquiesce to the reality that it was nothing, it was not about anything more than skin pigment and hair texture and social construct. And this is the way I'm supposed to feel about you. But yeah, that was a very, very difficult day.
You don't talk about this in the book, but I'm wondering if the school administrators and teachers were helpful at all that day and other days in terms of trying to be protective or be supportive.
That's a good point. And I tried to memorize some of that as I put that chapter together. And I can't say that there was any assault or any situation that I felt from the faculty and the administrators that we were dismissed. I do recall a certain amount of toleration, just kind of getting through the day. But I do remember them having to protect us in early mornings and after school. The dropouts, or the hoodlums, if you will, from the community would show up, and they've got bats and sticks and pipes to do us harm. So they had to protect us for the first few months, as I can recall. And then things began to get better as the year grew on. And of course, that incident with Dr. King would be a seminal moment for the Black community as well as the white community. So as I said earlier, just difficult times, to say the least. But one of the things that I would mention, and I don't say this so much in the book either, is that I wonder how I tolerated it. How did I eventually learn to become comfortable in this very uncomfortable setting? And I don't know that I ever became comfortable, but I always knew that I was leaving a home of love and support, though I couldn't believe or understand why my mom would decide that I would be one of the 6 students to be a part of this integration experiment. But going home to love and acceptance, I think, was so powerful. And I never gave a whole lot of credence and credit to that. But that made such a big difference. Imagine if I was coming from a very chaotic situation at home and then having to go into that and then go back to that, things could have ended up very, very different.
Mm-hmm. Thinking back to our theme of winning through perseverance, how do you think going through that experience helped you become successful at Coca-Cola, at McDonald's, getting on corporate boards, all the things that you've subsequently done professionally?
Yeah. Well, I'd probably want to liken that, because the parallels are so similar. In our institute today, as you well know, and you so clearly illustrated through the graphic novel that you put together for us, which, by the way, has won 8 book awards, and I think that there's a medal. So at some point during these, you're going to have to pull out those medals. I'm so proud of that, and the way that you communicated with such resonance to a younger demographic, some of the same messaging from the book itself. But when I look at my world today, being the first and only African-American to own a McDonald's in the city of Birmingham, the first African-American to serve on the board of directors of Coca-Cola United, this 10,000 associate company across 6 southeastern states, to be the first and only Black to serve on the board of directors of Synovus Bank. When I look at these opportunities that I have today, I wonder sometimes if I had not had the experience of being in settings where I'm looking at faces that didn't look like mine and learning how to navigate through that, which hones your communication skills, your relation skills. You watch how you deport yourself. for different reasons, but all the same, you're learning these skills as far as I'm concerned. So serving on these boards, having been with Coca-Cola for, gosh, 44 years now, starting at $5 an hour, and now serving on the board of directors of that company, on the board of directors of the bank, I'm looking at faces here again that do not look like me. And so I'd like to think that some of the exposures that I had, Dave, was paramount to understanding and facilitating my level of comfort in these settings. I know several of my associates who were on corporate boards, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, but to be able to say 44 years, with the bank 30 years, and as a McDonald's franchisee, 32 years, I like to think that that was grounded and rooted in having started at Goodwin Junior High School, 12 years old in the 9th grade. There are some significant parallels that I credit.
You talk in the book, and we captured it in the graphic novel, that first time walking into a boardroom and you're the only black face surrounded by a bunch of white faces. And at some level, you didn't feel like you necessarily belonged. But I have to think that having gone through the much more traumatic experience at Goodwin probably helped you deal with that first day on the board. Like, well, shoot, nobody's probably going to hit me with a pipe today, or, say something obnoxious to me. So this will be okay.
Yeah. Well, what a great analogy too. And thanks for bringing that up, because I do remember wishing that I had at least visited the bank on some of those subsequent and requisite luncheons that I had as they were vetting me, to have just walked in the boardroom. I think that that would have kind of created a sense of calm to me. But I remember a day walking into that boardroom for the first time for our first board meeting, and I'm looking at these mahogany walls and these tall back leather chairs. And as we sat down, the secretary passed out the binders, this huge red binder with my name and it sculpted into the binder. I mean, it was, and I remember just running my fingers across my name. And then Dave, kind of slyly looking around at the other binders to see if theirs were as red as mine. And they were, because you can't take all of this in. 2 life-size, hand-painted portraits of the founders of the bank. One of those founders invited me to be a part. It was overwhelming. And as I sat there, the one thing that permeated my thinking was, my parents never even had a checking account. And here I am sitting on the board of directors of a major bank. That's huge. And you're so right. I'm sitting here with 11, we didn't have any women on the board at that time, 11 of the wealthiest men in Birmingham. And then there's Larry Thornton, who barely finished high school, who got into college, junior college, and went on to Alabama State with a degree in art, still no business. And it's like, do I belong here? Well, the message to our listeners would be this: you belong where you think you belong. I think it was Henry Ford, who said, whether you think you can or whether you think you cannot, you're right. And so I think the tenets that we work on, Dave, so hard, and you just as hard as I do, particularly in the graphic novel, communicates a message that if you can believe that, you can achieve it. If you can change what you think, you'll change what you do. But to be honest, I'd be disingenuous if I didn't tell you that the thought crossed my mind that this is not for me. Mm-hmm. I could have gotten up and left and never returned. And that's how it happens with so many of us, which goes back to, if you can't take anything, you can't have anything. The more you can take, often with grace and humility, the more you can have. So basic, so simple, that to me is existential and even primordial in nature. but we miss it. We miss it. We fly off and we lose our opportunities, Dave, because we can't take the stuff. And there's a lot of stuff in just about anything we do of any great significance. You got to be able to take the stuff.
You know, when I think about perseverance, I think about it, playing the long game. And
Yeah.
you had another passage in chapter 3 that I think is pretty instructive along those lines. You talked about if you could speak to your 12-year-old self, what you would say is the following. This experience is not about you. I know you are young. I know you are afraid. But if you conquer this, the ripple effects will touch your children, your children's children, and a Southern community beyond imagination. So, when we think about perseverance, we also have to think about, your parents, your grandparents, things that they went through to set you up for success. I think about my great-grandparents who came over from Eastern Europe because my great-grandfather did not want to get drafted into the Soviet Army. So they got on a boat with nothing in their pockets, came to the United States, and, fast forward 100 years, and I have this beautiful house, beautiful cars, great friends. But they'd have no idea that the investment they made in persevering would have paid off so much for their descendants.
And that term of the 3 P's that you wrote about, give them to me: perseverance, people, persistence,
perception, people, and perseverance.
Yeah. I mean, that is such a powerful line. And I can't tell you how many people miss their end because they can't persevere. They can't deal with the discomforts that tends to go along with the process of success. Those minor, small failures that we all have, whether that's writing a paper or a report or a dissertation, thesis, in your experience or in our experience, just the disappointment of employees stealing and not being well-meaning and not capturing your passion for the business. But you persevere anyway, and we have for 32 years. We opened in 1992, and the one statement that I have been running from since 1992, I never, ever wanted to hear these words, Dave. I wonder whatever happened to that Black man that used to own a McDonald's on that corner. Well, 32 years later, no one has ever had to ask that question. And with my son being so passionate about the business and a part of it, it is my hope, and I trust that that question will not have to be asked for another 30, 40 years. So that's the piece that I think that matters is how we persevere through the process. When I look at the difficulties and the challenges of the 9th grade and the 10th grade at Robert E. Lee High School, and then I contrast that to today, where I can say that we have employed thousands of Birmingham citizens. We have generated millions of dollars into the community, whether that's by payroll or contributions to educational institutions or nonprofits. And that's one of the things that we're pretty big on doing and participating in these in these roles as well. So being able to serve our community much better is so significant to me. And I'm so grateful and thankful that I had what it took to persevere through that situation in 1967, 68.
So we started
Grateful
out
for it.
We started out talking about Goodwin Middle School, and most recently, life has really kind of come full circle because the grandson of the person that school was named for, George Goodwin, has purchased, was it 3,500
Absolutely.
books for Montgomery City school kids. And we can go into that experience in detail in a later episode. But I'm just kind of curious in the couple minutes we have left, how does that make you feel? You know, the grandson of Goodwin is buying 3,500 books, all of the proceeds going to the Why Not Win Institute.
Well, this gentleman stepped up. We never made the request of him. He just heard that Larry Thornton could possibly be visiting Montgomery Public Schools. And as we were thinking about who those donors were going to be, we have a new superintendent in Montgomery. So unlike the superintendent here in Birmingham, who purchased some 4,800 books for 10th graders through their English class, they chose to do it in history in Montgomery. But these were his words to me. He said, Larry, if you're coming to Montgomery, you don't worry about the books. I'll take care of the books, all of them. And I was speechless that he would do this. So you got to have a sense of what that means to me to have integrated this system in 1967, 68. And today we get to liberate that system in just a small way. We talk about the inner city, we talk about the public schools, but in this instance, the Why Not Win Institute, on which you are a board member, we get to go back and to be just a small part of some successes in the Montgomery system. But this piece that I'm about to share with you, I called universal and divine serendipity. The fact that the gentleman buying these books, and our listeners are going to love this because it is a full circle moment. His name is George Goodwin Jr. And the school that I integrated in 67, 68 was Goodwin Junior High School, named after his grandfather. That's kind of an indication, Dave, that we're on a good track, that we're doing some things right, that the universe is conspiring to uplift and partner with Why Not Win in order to make a difference in the lives of so many people. We're going to talk about in future episodes what turned and changed the trajectory in my life right there in that setting, as a matter of fact, at Robert E. Lee High School. But we'll get into that later. But yeah, it's such a special moment. I said to George, and he's a super great guy, but these were my words to him. I said, George, now, understandably, I have no fond memories of your granddaddy's school. Let's just be honest. It was tough every day. But it would be my honor if you would join me when I visit Goodwin Junior High School. And so he has agreed to do that day. That is going to be a particularly resonant moment. And I can't wait for that day to happen, to talk about this family who is addressing some of the ills of our Montgomery public school systems. I'm just too excited and can't wait to get back to Montgomery.
That'll be a great day for sure.
Absolutely.
Lost my microphone. We are out of time, so I will.
Oh, really? Whoa!
There's always another episode. However,
another 20 minutes.
There's another 20 minutes right around the corner.
There you go.
Take care.
Thank you, sir.